I'm back, BookTube. Welcome to Jackie's Reading Corner. And I thought I would update you on the very little bit of reading I got done this week. So, like I said, I was going to visit my sister. She has 2 baby boys. Well, one of them is 1, going on 2 in a couple months. And then the other one will be 3 or 4 in a few months. I'm not sure. I would have to ask my sister. So, and if you guys had any experience with little kids, or just look at little kids, just watching little kids, even if you don't have any in your life, or, watching them on TV, you know that taking little kids, you have to pay attention to them all the time. And there were a couple times where I've gotten lectured about how I need to, be more assertive and pay more attention to those 2 little boys, which I love to death, and I don't want to be responsible for anything happening to them or them getting hurt in some way, but it's hard to get used to if you're someone like me who has mostly been all about herself, except for those times when I go visit my sister. And I've had experience with I've had more experience than that, but it's a little different when they're your little cousins, because, they don't expect, and you're a kid, because you're not expected to, be responsible for them as a kid. Although apparently Anna, my cousin, my 12-year-old cousin, is the baby whisperer, which I know it's petty of me, but it does kind of just roll my eyes. I mean, of course, she probably is good. I'm being childish. But anyway, yes, Rascal is in the video, as always. So, first, let me just say so I didn't really participate much in Fantasy-a-thon. I did a little bit, but my problem is whenever I start getting involved in readathons, I'm always in the mid. First of all, I can't decide. I'm very indecisive about which books to read during that readathon up until the last minute, the day the readathon starts. And I don't participate in that many because, some people, I don't like the whole pressure of reading things in a week. And I'm not a fast reader, so I like to take my time with books. And I take a lot of breaks in between reading, and I feel desire to read other books. Unless it's a YA. That's one of the many reasons why I still enjoy reading a good YA book. Or even just one that's very entertaining. Because they don't take that long to read. And also, I don't like the pressure and responsibility of having to read a certain amount of books in a week. It's not fun. I can understand where it can be fun for some people, but for me, it's not. And I'm usually in the middle of so many books at the same time, and I feel like I have to read those books also, and sometimes they don't fit the criteria, or I just want to read something else for the readathon. So I try to stick to ones that are little, the one that I have always participated in since it started, not since it started. I think it already had 2 or 3 rounds going, was the Tome Topple, because you have 2 weeks to read big books. And then this one she extended to 10 days. So, the little bit of reading I got, what was it? The 2 I finished were Nevernight. And I decided, and I think you could technically count Revival as part of it, because you could argue that it is fantasy in a way. It's fantasy science fiction-y. Which is interesting that I'm thinking about it that way, because it bugs me, it drives me crazy. It's a little pet peeve of mine when people classify something that's clearly fantasy, or at least supernatural, as, it's science, it's just like science fiction. It's no, it's not. For me, science fiction involves crazy technology, there's time travel, which there are some books that have a little bit of fantasy and time travel in it, like the Outlander series. And you could argue with that one. And then also, psychic people with psychic powers and superheroes, But again, that's another part of science fiction that you could, because there are some people, because in fantasy there are people that have magical powers, and some of those powers could be seen as science fiction type powers, like psychic powers. So it just, and then like fantasy is magical creatures, magical powers, like I'm trying to think, like ghosts and vampires and werewolves and stuff like that. Although sometimes there are like Frankenstein, or like Van Helsing, for instance, was a movie where they kind of experimented on those. Dracula kind of experimented on those type of people. So there was a little bit of a science fiction element. But this all kind of it's been going on, what really started me thinking about how much that annoys me is back when the show Sleepy Hollow came on, and Orlando Jones, who plays Sheriff Irvine, he, in an article, he was saying, he referred to the show as science fiction. I was like, no, you're a great actor, but I have to disagree with you. It's not science fiction. It's supernatural, which is more fantasy than science fiction. There's no aliens. There's no time travel. Well, there is time travel. But there's no aliens. There's no crazy technology. There's creatures. There's, people, like I said, there is time travel. There's basically creatures. It's clearly a supernatural show. It's a pet peeve. It just drives me crazy. But anyway, so I read Nevernight for the readathon and Revival. I'm gonna count that one, so I can say I read at least 3 books. And then I went ahead and read this one. This is the one, like Nevernight and this one are the ones I made most progress on. I mean, actually Nevernight I ended up finishing. And that was for the challenge of reading a book that you, not necessarily were going to DNF, that you weren't going to come back to, but you did stop reading it for a while. And then you decide you're going to come back to it at some point. There was that, and then, I don't know what I would count Revival as, because that technically could also be a book that I started, because that one, the first time, when I first started reading it, I borrowed it from the library, and then because it's Stephen King, he writes such a long-ass books, which is not necessarily a bad thing, it just takes a long time to read them. And then I finally got around to buying it. So it was one that I was kind of in the middle of, and I started reading it, but I never finished it. And now I finally bought it because I wanted to finish it. I wanted to know how things were working out for the characters. I mean, there was a bit of a mystery element to what was going on with the character, the minister that comes into Jamie's life first when he's a little boy. So, and then this is more for the challenge of a book that is like a fantasy book that isn't something that you normally don't read, like a category you don't read, like young adult books or adult books, or in this case I put or middle grade, like that's in Maddie's case, she doesn't normally read middle grade. And this is more of this, I picked this because this kind of like, it was, Elliot Brooks described it as a collection of short stories that starts the whole series. And like the author, I don't know, Andrzej Sapkowski, he's not American, this is the translation. So I don't, Andres, I'm not sure. I probably should look that up, but so, and I don't read short story collections. So far, my experience with short stories collection has been like, like Kelly Links, one of her collections, I was just, I could get into it, but it could also be that it was magical realism. Although I didn't have a problem with Neil Gaiman's magical realism. I didn't absolutely love it, but I didn't hate it. It was I enjoyed reading that particular book, and I'm talking about Ocean at the End of the Lane. That's very magical realism. And then, but the Bane Chronicles was I was entertained by it. It was kind of nice to get to know one of my favorite characters, Magnus Bane. get to know his stories and some of the stories he brings up in the original series. So, and they were fun. It's just, and I think, to be fair, part of the problem is I spaced them out, like, really big spaces in between each short story. So maybe that kind of ruined my enjoyment. Okay, I gotta let the dog out because he's scratching up my door. Oh my God. Unfortunately, most dogs aren't trained to turn the knobs and open the door for themselves. And when I film videos, I like to keep the door closed, especially if someone else is here. And my dad's here, and like I said, I like keeping these private. So I've gone pretty far. I'm more than halfway. I think I'm gonna take a trip up to the Gibbons bookstore, since it's so nice. It's like 70 degrees and it's so bright and sunny. And I haven't been, although I did go outside quite a bit while I was with my sister, at my sister's place. But tomorrow I go back to work, and I'm also working on Saturday. Yay! And then I work on I'm off on Sunday, but everything's closed on Sunday. Although, like the Aberdeen area or the Southern Pines area is open. But, like everything in the village is closed because, this is one of those communities where Sunday is the day of rest, which is not a bad thing. It's great. I understand, but at the same time, like my mom had said, people come and they're gonna want to take a walk and explore the village and everything. So if you want, you gotta. But I understand, as a person who works in customer service, I can understand now, especially now, how someone would want to have Sunday off, especially when it's if you're a religious person, it's considered the day of rest. But anyway, and then I'll have to check my schedule and see after Sunday when my next day off is. But it's good that I'm working on these specials. I spent $200 on a new iPod Touch. So this is pretty good. It's very entertaining. It's another situation where it's kind of, I'm sure I'm gonna be happy that I read this first and I got some background on the character. It's basically, the whole series itself is about this Witcher guy. I think he's half, I didn't know this, but I think he's half elf, or he is an elf. And he slays monsters, so he's like this world's version of Buffy. And there is actually a vampire in one of these little stories. But it's called something different. And there's, but it's basically all about his, introducing some of the adventures and the reputation he has. Like, a lot of people think he's just a killer. A lot of people see him just as a killer. Even though it's really that he kills monsters, but sometimes monsters can look like regular people, or can only have just become a monster because someone turned them into, and they could have started out as innocent. And sometimes they can be someone that looks innocent during a certain time, but then they turn into a monster at night or something. And it's unfortunately though, some of these I might one day have to reread this, because there's so many stories in here that when I was at my sister's, again, there was so much background noise going on that it's kind of hard when, I can't read when it's directly in my ear, I can directly hear it. Or if it's something that just annoys me to some capacity, I can't ignore it because I just get so irritated by it. Like when my mom listens to Dr. Laura on the radio, on talk radio, I can't read in the car if I'm hearing her. And that's the only problem with going on road trips when it's just me and my mom. On those, whether visiting my sister or going to South Carolina, and then I hear Dr. Laura and it drives me crazy, and I just get angry. Or sometimes because she's one of those people that I kind of see her points, and I partially agree with her, but then she's such a mean person about it. And she's so crabby to people, and so snippy with them, and short with people, and and she doesn't, from what I've known, I've heard my mom and dad say, she doesn't have the best background. Like as in personal life, she's all about, the men come, your husbands come first. Like her book is called The Proper Care and Feeding of Your Husbands, and she's a very conservative person and doesn't think very highly of us millennials. And she's her son is her pride and joy. She puts him on a pedestal, and she cheated on her husband with someone she worked with I think that's what happened. So it's like, what right do you have to give advice on marriage issues if your own marriage, like, but yeah, it's hard for me to concentrate, whether it's something that annoys me or something that I'm actually kind of interested in, like, at the time, into listening to, like, the real story behind that new special TV movie special, the Act. But there's just so many distractions, and there's very little time where, I couldn't sneak down to the basement, but first of all, my mom and my sister need me to be upstairs so that I can take care of the boys when they can't, and then during the times when the boys are napping, that's my one time where there's peace and quiet. And yes, and then when my mom turns on the TV, then yeah, I could go down in the basement where we sleep, but it's chilly down there, and it's dark, and I still want to be, around, around everybody to an extent. But it's tough, but either way, so I might have to reread these one day when I'm done with the whole series. But either way, these stories are very interesting, and I feel so bad for the guy because, like I said, he has such a horrible reputation. People see him as a killer, even though he saves lives. And as I was reading, I was reminded of the middle grade series, the Seventh Son series. Like, they just recently, like a few years ago, there was a movie version of, of the series, starring, what is his name? British actor. He was Prince Caspian in the Narnia movies. Ben Barnes. He was the lead character in the movie version of The Seventh Son. And I always forget this actor's name. He played the Giver in the movie The Giver. And he was the main guy in The Big Lebowski. And he was the guy in The Fisher King, co-star with Robin Williams. I can see his face, but I can't remember his name. After I film this video, his name is gonna pop into my head. But, yes, I'm probably gonna bring this, but it reminded me of that, because the Seventh Son series, because it's basically this young boy who is the seventh son of the seventh son, kind of thing, and he is taken in by this old man who trains him to fight, monsters and magical, mythical creatures that are, evil, like witches and stuff. And they're called spooks. And they have this, and they also, I think, if I remember correctly, they also kind of had a reputation too. And, which, it's funny, like, Maddie does not read middle grade because because she struggles with the writing style and stuff like that. And me, I kind of have the same problem, but I will make exceptions to some middle grade books. Like, I love Nevermore. So I never really finished that series for that reason. Then it was just a struggle to get through because it kind of aggravates. The writing style annoyed me, and the way women characters, were portrayed, and how the author described characters. He described with the same little details every time. Like, it felt like very low middle grade. It feels almost like excerpts rather than short stories. But like I said, I don't have much experience with short stories. So that's really all I read for the Fantasy-a-thon readathon. I did read a little bit of Kings of Wild finally. I'm on chapter 6. Basically these guys were in a mercenary band, and they are worshipped by everybody, but they're old men now. And one of them has a teenage daughter who wants to be in a band as well and slay monsters, but her father, the guy from doesn't think it's such a good idea because she's putting her life in danger constantly. He just didn't see any. He did not realize until too late that teaching her how to fight was not a good idea. So currently, she has gone on this. She's volunteered for this adventure, and her father Gabriel, who he's been wanting to get their group back together for a long time, but this time he has a good reason. So he goes to our narrator, Clay. And he's like, my daughter has gone on this quest, and she could be in danger, and I want to help her and save her. So we need to get the band back together. And Clay's a little reluctant because he's an old man now. He has a little girl. He's happily married, has a pretty good life, and doesn't want to risk his life anymore, and it's understandable. But then his daughter makes him feel guilty because she's like, would you, if I was in danger, would you come save me too, Dad? Would you save me too, Daddy? And he's like, of course. And like, well, then you should go help your friend and rescue his daughter. So he has left, so he decides to go, and they are right now traveling, and they just met a bunch of bandits who robbed them. But funny enough, the leader of the bandits kind of respects him at the same time. And that's the last chapter I read where they left. They got robbed by these bandits. And they also have to go get Gabriel's sword because he sold this special sword he had earned on one of their adventures to his ex-wife's new boyfriend. So he has to go get the sword back. But, and from the way they describe him, in reference to this, making all these references to 80s rock bands, you could go with the metaphor of him being the guy that he sold the sword to was like their manager at one time when they were all together. But yeah, so far it's really good. I like that the chapters are short. Like I said, I think depending on the book, I prefer short chapters over long ones. So I started reading that, and then the other fantasy book I did start, but I'm going to continue with having this book for Tome Topple, is finally started The Way of Kings. Although I feel like I didn't get far enough to really well, let's see. We've been introduced to two of the characters. Kaladin, I guess he's like our main male lead. In the beginning of the book, he's training. He wants to fight for the king's army, but he's just kind of given this ragtag group. And if they progress and kill enough people, then they'll get to go to the king's army, and that's Kaladin's goal. But then somehow he ends up getting enslaved. I think, like they said, he killed the wrong person, and that person's brother has chosen to enslave him. And he's tried to escape several times, but he never succeeded. So now he's kind of like throwing a pity party and feels sorry for himself, and feels like he's never gonna. Hi, Sophie. My other dog's all the way over there on my little love seat couch in my little living space that I rarely use. In fact, I think she uses it more than I do. And then we recently, and now they kind of ended up in where he had originally wanted to go, which is at the King's Army encampment. And then we also met another character, a female character, she is trying to find the princess, who, something like that. We only have one chapter on her. We've mostly been with Kaladin. And she's been trying to catch up with the princess, but the princess is constantly traveling all the time, and she's finally found her. And the princess is in this one spot. I don't know what this woman is. Let me find her name at least. The city where she goes is called Kharbranth. I don't know. Kharbraanth. City of Bells. And her name is Shallan. And that's about, like I said, we haven't spent much time with Shallan. And I did on this trip read a little bit of Dune, because I decided not to bring Leviathan Wakes because it's a big book as far as physical size. And we met our main character, Paul, who is, he's the son of a duke. But him and his mom have kind of been left to their own devices. And the duke rarely visits them. And Paul has had to take this test to prove he's human. And he puts his hand in this box, which causes him physical pain when he puts his hand in there. And he's been taught by all these teachers, but the issue is that he is male, and his mom was meant to should have had a daughter. And the woman, her mentor or whatever, is telling her she should have tried harder to have a daughter, and that she was thinking more about her husband's needs and what he wanted. She wasn't thinking about what was necessary. And that, of course, a guy would want a son, to carry on his legacy. Which I'm curious since my brother-in-law, if they did have a third kid, and biologically, the male is the one who chooses the sex of the baby, they say. So I'm wondering, he has 2 boys. So would he want a girl if they tried for a third kid? Although my brother-in-law and sister were saying if they had it for a third kid, it would be an accident. Because they're not actually trying. And it's expensive. Daycare is expensive. So, I haven't gone far on that one, but it's no surprise there. But that's why I didn't bring books like this or this, because I knew that there's no way I would get anywhere with those while I was there. And then the 2 Stephen King books I brought because I couldn't decide. This is one I already started and I felt like, oh, I need to get to this. I need to finish it. So, I didn't read much of it. All that happened is I got through chapter 17. And in chapter 17, first of all, Jack, there's a big wasp nest on one of the roofs, so he had to get the wasp nest, but he got stung by a wasp, I think, and he goes to clean up, and then he finds his son in the bathroom, who has one of his episodes where he talks to his little invisible friend Tony, who is showing him visions, and he's freaking out. So his parents were in panic, take him to a doctor, because this is, of course, before they get so isolated that they can't even leave the hotel. And the doctor talks to him, and of course, the doctor, he's a doctor, so of course he's not going to believe in ghosts or anything, so he's thinking, oh, Danny made this guy up and made up Tony because he can't handle all his parents are, we're thinking about getting divorced. Jack had all these problems like alcohol, and he got violent with Danny, and then they, and somehow, and he attributes to the fact that, oh, Danny just pieced things together, that he's just a really smart, intuitive kid, that he's not psychic or anything, he just pieced everything together, like there were context clues, and that's how he knew certain things. Because, I mean, of course, your first thought is, logic. You find it hard to believe that this person could be psychic or something, or be seeing ghosts or something, Of course, we as the audience know, I mean, it's Stephen King book, so you know that seeing the ghost and the psychic powers thing is going to be real. It's not going to just be something that, oh, Danny's just so intuitive. I am curious what's going to happen at the end, because they say the ending of the movie, the Stanley Kubrick movie, is different from the book. And then once that happens, once I actually finish this book, I will probably one day watch the Stanley Kubrick movie, and then watch the miniseries version if I'm able to access it in some way, either by buying it, or maybe it will come on TV one day. And, watch it so I can find out, like, compare it. And then that's really, like I said, I didn't really progress. I really shouldn't bring so many books with me to my sisters, because I'm barely gonna get any reading done. It's so hard to narrow it down and decide, especially because because there are so many books that I've started over the years that I haven't finished yet. I always feel guilty. And then I brought The Stand, which Missy from Binge Reader, it has a Stephen King book club, and luckily for me, this is the book that they're reading this month. I mean, maybe unconsciously I knew that. Maybe I did know that. It wasn't like just coincidence or luck or whatever. Because I think I did look at it, and maybe that's probably why, and I just kind of forgot about it. So I did start this on this break, so I'm a little ahead of the game. So I'm definitely ahead of the game. But I don't know if I'll get this done in a month, because like I said, I'm reading so many other books. Okay, so that's what I'm reading, and let me just show you real quick. So that's what so most of those books, with the exception of The Last Wish, are kind of tome-like, and then I'm bringing a couple books, like American Gods. There's I think I just recently grabbed Voyager, because I need to get to that, because I think what I'm going to get rid of the Outlander series, because I enjoy it when I read it, but I'm not like, oh my god, this is my all-time favorite book series. I think because Terry from Florida has expressed interest in the Outlander series, but again, she doesn't want to spend the money if she ends up not loving it. Which I understand, she works at Walmart, so she doesn't make a lot of money. She's living with roommates, so I can kind of understand. And I know that I'm very spoiled when it comes, because I can afford to buy some books. I don't have to, at the moment, yes, I need to be careful, or at least my parents want me to learn to be careful, because one day when it gets to that point, I need to be more learn how to control my money, my spending habits, so I can learn, and not one day get so carried away that I end up spending too much. So, but anyway, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to give her I actually just literally sent a message to her. I'm going to offer her the books, but I still want to finish the series, so I need to read Voyager and then read the next two. And I kind of interested in the spin-off series of hers. Why did I say him? It's a woman, a female author. I'm gonna start. I want to read her spin-off series about a character that is mentioned in the books. So I'm gonna slowly give her the books, give her the first 2 books, and then even if it takes her a long time to read, because those are chunky books. So I don't know. It will probably take her a while before if she accepts them, it will probably take her a while to read them, and I think she will, because she did accept my Lord of the Rings books. Because yes, I'm giving away my Lord of the Rings books. Dear God. Okay, I know no one's actually saying anything to me, but I don't know. I always think about how people like put pressure on you and stuff like that about books like that. But so I'm gonna give her Outlander, but I still want to get ahead and finish reading Voyager, and then I'm gonna give her the other, and then I'm gonna I need to read the other 2. There's 2 more books in that series, and it's gonna make a big dent in my shelf. I mean, like they seem like right here. So I'll make a big space. So hopefully she'll take them. If not, I'll donate them. But I'm also I wanted to real quick show you some of the books I bought recently. So I bought this one, the Deptford trilogy, which I think this one I might have actually shown you guys already. So I thought that was kind of nice because it has all the books. I think it's kind of a bit of a mythological kind of story. This little blurb on the back: around a mysterious death is woven a glittering, fantastical, contrived trilogy of novels, luring the reader down a labyrinth tunnel of myth, history, and magic. The Deptford trilogy provides an exhilarating antidote to a world from where the fear and the dread and splendor of wonder have been banished. So this is one I bought recently from the used bookstore, and I'm hoping that there was a series of books that I was tempted to buy last time I went there, and so I'm hoping it will still be there, and I'm gonna buy it, or at least buy the first 2 books. Which, speaking of, this was a book by said author who wrote that series. I needed to get this one anyway because I had the first 2 books in the series. Our trilogy, Hunter's Blade trilogy. I remember in the past I've heard some positive things about R.A. Salvatore, and people have recommended to me when I've asked. So I'm slowly accumulating his books. And plus, they also provide a type of, new fantasy stories I don't read a lot about, because, like I've said in the past, you read about vampires and werewolves and fairies and elves and all that all the time. And this one involves, I think there are elves in this one. But there are other magical creatures in this, so I guess this one doesn't follow my standard, but I did buy books about one of his other series about orcs and stuff. So, and yes, this is a hardback, and my other ones are small mass market paperback, but you know what? I don't care. I just like having all the books. And then I went to my mom needed to go to Costco on the way home yesterday, which is a warehouse store if you're not familiar, but I think most people are familiar with Costco. It's like BJ's. And they have a little book section, really small. And surprisingly, I had this moment of excitement because whenever we got into BJ's, they don't usually have a book that I would get necessarily super excited about. I mean, maybe they would on it sometimes, but most of the time they just have those books that, like, books for a huge collection of books for, like, little kids. And then they have a lot of those paperbacks that just the general reader would read. And they don't have, they don't always have, super special books that I personally get excited about. But Costco had 3. And I almost bought all 3, but I decided to exercise some self-control, and I bought only 2. Although I almost kind of regretted not buying the third one, but I just couldn't narrow it down. So I got Wicked Saints. Oh, and it's $11.99, which most in regular bookstores, like at Books A Million, Barnes and Noble, it would be like $20 to $30 to buy a hardback book. This is Wicked Saints, which I've heard a lot about this. Like, Sam from Thoughts and Tomes talks about this book quite a bit. Like, I think she said she met the author. And I know, damn it, Sam from Saccharin, I don't even know if that's the correct pronunciation. I was so excited because she finally said, how do you pronounce it? Saskatchewan or something like that. The reader or something. She's a huge fan of Outlander, and she finally said how to pronounce her name. It's what in the book. It's what her love interest Jamie and his group of friends call her, because she's English and so it's kind of, and she's English, so it's kind of like their nickname, and it became a bit of an endearment. Although I think normally it's kind of like something you spit say when you don't. But anyway, I know she's talked about this book and quite enjoyed it, and I've been wanting to get it, and I saw it at Costco, and I was this one, The Gilded Wolves. It was between The Gilded Wolves and this one, which was the other book I was gonna get, and I think I'm pronouncing this right, Enchante. I really do think that's how you say it. Because I hear in the movies all the time where a character will say that. Enchante. And I think it looks and sounds like it could mean enchanted. Like, that's sometimes you say you're enchanted to meet someone. I think that's what this is called, Enchante. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but I do love books that takes place in France. So, but it was either the other one, Gilded Wolves, I think takes place in France, or a place like France. In this is the one where I actually read. I mean, I did kind of read the description of this one too, but this is one where a woman disguises herself as a duchess at the court of Louis the 16th and Marie Antoinette. Oh no, a baroness. She turns herself into a baroness by using magic. Like, she infiltrates the court or something. So those are the books I got from Costco, and like I said, I did think about getting Gilded Wolves too, but I ended up I need to exercise some caution. So I'm some self-control. So and I think I might consider reading The Goldfinch and War and Peace for Tome Topple as well, because I do need to. There are so many books that I do have a lot of big books a lot of options for big books I can read for Tome Topple. But I do need to focus on. I probably need to focus on the Stephen King books and the American Gods book, which I've had for a long time. I've had since we moved here, so I need to get that one. And I also need to focus on Count of Monte Cristo, which is way beyond the 1,000-page mark. I mean, again, I think I've said this before. I couldn't have read it for Mammoth March if I had known about it ahead of time. So, well, at least now though I know about that there's Mammoth March. So I could read I could see if I have any other Mammoth books. So I also need to read a little bit of that, and then I have books over there that are chunky books, like Empire of Storms and Bleak House, The Lost Queen, Fall of Giants. And I don't know, I think the 5th season, I think that wasn't, I counted the number of pages before we left to see my sister, and I think that doesn't hit the mark for tomes. But I do need to read that. That was one of the books I wanted to read because it was a diverse read. And I tend to read some diverse books, but I didn't get around to any diverse. I mean, I did, but I didn't bring them with me. So anyway, that's what's going on my reading this as of right now. Would love to know what you guys are reading. And if you like this video, be sure to give a thumbs up and click subscribe if you haven't already. I hope, as always, you are enjoying your reading. And I will talk to y'all later. Alright, bye!